From the Pyromania release, the most cliche song I could have possibly played for our next guest, Chris. Def Leppard with Photograph. And on the phone for the first time on the Classic Metal Show, we've got concert photographer Joe Kleon. What's going on, Joe?
How you guys doing?
We're doing, Joe. I told you just before you came on the air that I used to listen to your you used to do a Sunday show, didn't you?
I did an all-local regional band show on Sunday on Rock 107 again.
Yeah, I did. I used to listen to that years ago. How long?
I guess the song intro could have been worse. You could have played Photograph by Nickelback, I guess.
Well, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. Well, Joe, how long ago has it been since you did your radio show? Because I left the Akron-Cleveland area about 12 years ago. So when was the last time you did your show?
I left Rock 107 the day before Clear Channel took over.
Which would be when?
And, that was 05, 06, maybe, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And then I went to a top 40 station in Canton and worked as promotion director there for about 5 years, and now I'm doing an all indie streaming thing with a bunch of bands, part of a network called Songcast.
Excellent.
Doing some radio stuff.
Excellent.
Radio stuff is kind of my day job now.
Yeah, I get it. Well, Chris and I, we're failed radio guys, and we're coming up on 20 years of doing the Classic Metal Show. Next month we'll be doing 20 years. So
I think if you do anything for 20 years, I wouldn't consider it a failure.
Well, we're failed commercially. How's that?
Okay, I'll give you that.
We did not. We did not line our pockets and make the big time. So we're just a couple of internet DJs.
Yeah, I managed to do a commercial thing for about 20 years and was the last live overnight guy at NCX before they started voice tracking, and did some radio out of state for a while in Savannah, Georgia, and up in Vermont. And the commercial radio business it was horrible back then. I can't imagine what it's like now.
Sure. Well, Joe, we didn't bring you on necessarily to talk about radio. Obviously, from yours and my conversation, we definitely wanted to talk about photography. And I definitely want to get into, as you probably heard us talking ahead of time, about where this industry is going. Because it's just so, from what I see, which are pieces, because I'm not a photographer, but it's completely fucked up now. But I figured maybe the best place to start is for you to kind of give not only your background, but maybe like a synopsis of what the industry was looking for or does look for in concert photography versus what it's sort of morphing into now.
I started about 13, 14 years ago. And digital cameras, of course, weren't as prevalent. The digital camera thing was just coming around back then. And it's just really become devalued because everybody and their brother has a little Ashton Kutcher purse camera and will go shoot a show for Band X for free. So why do they need to have somebody who's spent 15 years in the industry when, Zoe will go shoot it with her Canon Rebel for free? Right. And the business has been devalued that way. And also that, into the pit, they let pretty much anybody, a lot of these publicists for a lot of these bands. So you can have somebody from a blog that has 2 viewers. They send an email to the right person. They're in the pit, sometimes with their iPhone shooting. That's always fun.
Jeez. Well, Joe, go ahead.
Well, just because there's so many people with cameras nowadays that will take these pictures for free, and the publicist can grab these pictures off social media and everywhere that they want, it has completely devalued the industry as far as trying to shoot from a professional level.
Right. Well, Joe, let me get to a technical question first because I'm just curious. You mentioned the whole digital camera thing. Obviously everybody who has a cell phone these days, these smartphones, they've got some pretty damn good cameras on them. I mean, anymore, the photos that people can get with their cell phone is pretty amazing. And I'm sure that, you've been around long enough to where you use the celluloid or the film. And
I was never a film shooter.
Well, I'm getting here, getting to the question here. I'm sure you have used film at some point in your life. Yes? No? Even
yeah, I mean, before shooting with those little disposable cameras when I was a kid, but as far as shooting any band stuff, I never used film for any of that.
All right. Well, I guess that is kind of a rarity because I guess, well, this is kind of make my question kind of void now because I was going to ask you if you've had some experience shooting with film as opposed to obviously the simplistic use of a digital camera and just being able to take hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures on a memory stick and just download it to your computer for any kind of editing or whatnot. But that what photographers had to go through years ago as opposed to what they got to do today. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a whole lot easier for somebody like me because I have a memory card that'll hold 5,000 shots at my camera's highest resolution, so I can shoot as much as I want. And I invited a vintage film shooter to a Wish You Were Here show recently, a local tribute band that I do a lot of work with. He brought 3 rolls of film, so he basically had 96 shots or whatever to shoot, space out through the entire show. So as far as that kind of a difference, the expense and actually taking the pictures, I don't have to buy film or limit my shots or anything like that. And I think another benefit digitally is the post-processing capability with places like Lightroom and Aperture and all those programs. You can do so much more to photos than can be done in the film days. So I think the technology has really helped the industry in those two senses, but it's hurt it in the fact, like I said before, that everybody now has a camera, so it's hurt it and devalued it kind of at the same time.
Sure. Now, from your personal experience, obviously you've had an opportunity to take a lot of photos, of professional photos of national bands as well as local bands and whatnot. Has there been and is there still any kind of monetary value for you in the business?
There is. It's just harder to find, and I have to hustle a lot more. Not as much monetary value in the concert angle, but I'm doing a lot more portrait photography, senior graduation photos, some weddings and stuff like that to kind of make up for it on the back end. But there is still some value of concert photos. I mean, I sell a decent amount of prints and things like that. So
sure.
And then places like the Plain Dealers still pay for me to go out and shoot, so there is still value from that aspect, although it's not as good, I'm sure, as it used to be.
Right. Well, let's go back a little bit to what you were saying, Joe, about anybody with a blog can get in the pit and take pictures. Why is it that the publicists themselves, and this is a question I have not only for photography but for reviewing, for everything, for interviews, and one of the most famous things that we've done on the show here was we said some shit on the show about Ace Frehley, and their publicist balked on us and gave an Ace interview to a podcast that had like 5 listeners, and we of course torched it. But the thing that drives me the most nuts about that, because I know all the publicists, probably all the same people you do, I don't understand why these guys are willing to just have their artist that they're trying to promote, the brand that they're trying to build, the product that they're trying to build, why they're willing to just put that in the hands of anybody instead of the people that are, not necessarily the best, but the most respected or the most professional at dealing with people. And I'm sure you're seeing that now. I guarantee when you're in the pit and you're sitting next to somebody with their Samsung phone taking photos, you want to punch them in the face.
Next time you're on Facebook, check out a Facebook page called Assholes in the Photo Pit. It's hilarious.
Nice. All right.
But, yeah, I mean, pit space, especially at, smaller places like House of Blues, and even at some of the bigger places like the Q, can be pretty limited sometimes. So if you've got 3 people with, Ashton Kutcher purse cameras and somebody waving a selfie stick around, it can be a little difficult to move around.
Right. It's crazy, man. Well, another thing I did want to talk about, dude, is how they're changing, not all artists, but it seems like I see it more and more from, not only yourself, but I do know some photographers in some other cities as well. I constantly am seeing people that are saying there were no pictures being taken in the pit anymore. Like they're having you guys more and more at shows stand at the soundboard or not in front of the bands where you can get the quality shots anymore. Why is that happening?
I think maybe the 65-year-old aging rock star doesn't want to be photographed up close. Sometimes there's valid reasons if there's pyro in front or something like that, and they don't, of course, want people standing around it.
Right.
But it seems like the metal bands are actually the best about it. Even the bigger bands like Judas Priest and the bands that are playing arenas, as far as letting us in the pit, letting us right close to the band, and it's the pop acts and the country acts and the classic rock acts that almost never let you in the pit. And there's some exceptions like Rush, Aerosmith, and Kiss, which are good to photographers, but most of the other bands, Springsteen, Paul McCartney, Rolling Stones, they keep you very, very far away, so you got to have a huge lens to get pretty much anything. And
right.
The amount of time that we're allowed to shoot is 3 songs used to be pretty much the standard. Now some artists are 2 songs, 1 song, and there's just been every ridiculous stipulation you can imagine, like the first 30 seconds of the first 2 songs, and just shit that's so stupid that you wonder who even thought it up in the first place.
Right, and let's be honest, if you're doing 1 song, half the time the band is having sound problems, so they're not actually giving a performance anyway, as much as they're running back and forth to the to the side of the stage to try and get their mics right or their monitors right or whatever. So you end up getting less than quality shots.
Over the last few years, I've been just not shooting shows where the stipulation is just 1 song. It's just not even worth it for me to drive down there and go through the hours of BS to go in there and shoot for 3 or 4 minutes. It's ridiculous. And you can kind of say the same thing with 3 songs, too, because a lot of the good stuff on stage, as far as lighting and performance-wise, doesn't happen until later on in the show, so we're always limited. A lot of bands, 3 songs, it's 12, 13 minutes, and you're out.
Right. It just doesn't make... I guess for myself, and I'm only speaking for myself here, because I know for me, when I go to look at a concert review, first thing I look at is the pictures. And if the band looks like shit, then I generally don't read the review. I know that's probably not everybody, but that's how I have always done it. And I guess, the restrictions that they're putting on, and again, I've never been a photographer. I've only know some, because of the industry, which has really let me kind of understand how it works. But I don't understand, and I continue to not understand why the bands care. I don't understand why a band would care if you shoot the whole show. I get it if you were, popping off flashes or something in their face, but I know you guys generally don't. So I don't understand. Why wouldn't they just let you be in the pit and take pictures in and out whenever you want throughout the set?
I'm friends with Cleveland photographers like Janet McCoska, and, back in 78 or 79 when Zeppelin came through and you were approved to shoot the show, you shot the whole 3-hour show, and that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
Not that way anymore, and I think a lot of bands don't even know what their publicists put in some of these contracts. I mean, My Chemical Romance, I believe, was the band, had one 3 or 4 years ago that said if you used the photos for any reason other than the magazine that you were approved for, even like on your own personal website and your portfolio, that you had to pay them $30,000, and just ridiculous stuff.
Well, Joe, who's the most fun band that you've ever shot, or most exciting, or something that you were looking forward to and it was everything that you had hoped it would be, when you had the opportunity?
For me, it would be shooting Rush twice, just because they're my favorite band and have been since I was probably 7 years old. And I've seen about 50 shows over the course of my life, so being able to shoot them was probably the best for me. And anybody who's just really iconic, even if I don't like their music, it's always fun to shoot. Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney, Paul Simon, any of those big, huge upper echelon artists. It's just really exciting for me to be able to capture the visuals of one of their shows.
Sure. Now, how does a guy, you mentioned that you've been, doing photos for 15 years. How does a guy just get to be a photographer and get to have access the way that you have? Was your connections in the radio industry helpful, or did you, pursue it through some other avenues?
The radio thing was really helpful. Also in the late 80s, early 90s, I worked for some record labels, like Warner Brothers, Elektra Atlantic, and some places like that. So I did have a lot of connections through that and through the radio. And I really just started shooting local bands, and I was working on the air at NCX, so I knew Michael Stanley, who's huge in the Cleveland area, and started taking my cameras to some of his shows, and it just kind of spiraled out from there. It seemed like once I got a couple of bigger nationally known bands, it was easier to get the next one and the next one. And once I started shooting where the photos were being published in a publication, be it a newspaper or a magazine, that made it even easier, and it just spiraled out of control. I never would have guessed I'd be shooting the bands that I'm shooting now, and I just started off shooting metal bands in Cleveland clubs, basically.
Right. What's the biggest publication one of your photos has been used for?
Oh, jeez. CNN, I believe. I'm not sure. There's been a lot. I mean, Classic Rock Magazine over in Europe has used some of my stuff. Lots and lots of different newspapers and publications and websites. I contribute regularly to Brave Words. I'm sure that gets a ton of traffic. Whenever they put links to my website in there, the traffic from there is unbelievable. I show my stuff out to anybody who I can get it out to. So there's been hundreds and hundreds of places.
Sure. Now, Joe, was it last year or the year before? I don't remember now, even though I bought a piece from you. But you did some art showings where you showcased a lot of your art, in an actual artistic showing. That all by itself kind of is a testament to how much work that you've done, as well as how much quality work that you've done. Talk a little bit about that process and and let me preface this way. I know for me personally, I don't like to get up and hawk my own shit. I just don't. I feel kind of weird saying, yeah, this is something great that I did, or look at how good this is, or look at how good that is. I'm not very comfortable doing that. Obviously, where you had basically a building with wall-to-wall pictures of everything that you did, and you were walking around talking to people and telling them your experiences and your stories about this picture and that picture and whatnot for a month at a time. That would be wildly uncomfortable for me personally. Talk a little bit about what gave you the idea to do that and how it was received, and if it was indeed uncomfortable for you as well.
Well, it was uncomfortable for me. I've always been better on the radio where I'm in a room by myself, and it never really bothered me how many people were listening, even when I would get the ratings and see what the estimated size of the audience was. That never bothered me, but public speaking and personal interaction like that was kind of a different story. But the art gallery shows were a lot of fun. There was a new art gallery opening in Cleveland, and they wanted to, right after the gallery opened, do a showcase of my work, and it was really a lot of fun, and it got me a ton of publicity, got me on the local TV stations in Cleveland, and pretty much every publication around Cleveland, and it was just a huge, huge publicity boon for me. And it worked out so well that another gallery at Akron, we moved the gallery down there a few months after the Cleveland gallery ended. So that was a couple years ago. I did the Cleveland and the Akron galleries, and it was just really neat walking into a room and just seeing a bunch of framed, 100 different framed photos of mine, and I got the photos afterwards, so that was great too.
Right.
I just did it to redecorate my studio.
Nice. How many bad stories, and you don't have to identify who told them to you, but how many bad stories did you have to listen to about, oh yeah, I was at that show, and let me tell you about Springsteen told this story about blah, blah, blah. How much of that did you have to listen to?
I hear a lot of that all over the place anyway.
Nice. Well, Joe, another one, something that is fascinating to me, and I only have heard these stories from you, but some of these artists are just dicks to you guys. And you've told me one, you've told me several, but I'll point at one and you can avoid it or talk about it. But the one that just stunned me was the way you got treated by Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson was a bad one, but he's like that to pretty much everybody, and he just, I guess, hates photographers, which you would think maybe he would just not allow photographers in the pit at your show. That's a pretty easy fucking fix, don't you think?
Yeah.
But at Rock on the Range, he was just always trying to find a photographer that wasn't looking so he could throw his cup full of water on their gear, and he was trying to spit on us, trying to spit on me, and it was pretty unsettling. I didn't shoot him when he played in Youngstown, and he was playing with Rob Zombie, and there was like 5 photographers, and only 2 of us were credentialed to shoot both bands, and the other photographers couldn't believe why I wouldn't shoot Marilyn Manson. Oh my God, why aren't you going to use that photo pass? And he's a fucking dick. That's why.
Excellent.
And then there was a certain classic rock band that I won't mention, a big arena show, and we're very, I'm just not allowed to run around and shoot wherever I want. We basically have to meet in a security area. A representative of Live Nation or whoever the promoter or the band will escort us down to the stage or the soundboard, wherever we're supposed to shoot. They will stand there while we shoot, and then they will escort us out. And the times where I have tickets, they won't just set you loose with your camera in the venue. You either have to take it to your car or keep it in the security area. I mean, the rules are very rigid for photographers. So we're doing this major arena, classic rock, dinosaur band. And they tell us where to stand. We start shooting. And 30 seconds into the first song, somebody is just in my face screaming at the top of their lungs, "Get the fuck out of here!" I'm thinking it's a security guy that, doesn't know that I'm a media photographer. There was like 6 or 7 of us standing in this, scattered around this spot where they told us to stand. So I go to hold up my pass to show the guy that I'm a photographer, and he just starts screaming again, "Get the fuck out of here!" And the guy's spitting in my face when he's screaming, and he starts to grab me and push me out of the way. And you can say whatever you want to me, but don't put your hands on me. And
right.
It almost escalated to end badly, but then one of the promoters from the show came over and ushered us out of the way. And the time between my first photo and last photo for that show was 40 seconds. So I shot 40 seconds of that show. And to make matters worse, not long after the show, somebody, I don't know who it was, but one of my photos appeared on the artist's website. And I never sent them any photos, and I don't know how that actually happened.
All right. All right. Well, Joe, what's your thoughts on, rock photographers, probably some of the most notable names out there is like Neil Zilzauer or like Mark Weiss. Any thoughts?
Finn Costello was probably my favorite, but there's lots and lots of great ones out there.
Sure.
Those old albums that we all listened to when we were growing up, I mean, those photos on those albums are iconic and timeless, and you see that photo and it takes you back to the time when you were listening to that album. So hopefully I can provide some of those same visuals in the modern day. And it's, just the 3-song thing used to bother me when I was first starting out. Now most of the time I don't mind it because I've gotten used to getting what I need in the 3 songs. And most of the time I don't have a ticket anyway, so when I'm done shooting my 3 songs, I'm escorted to the door and I have to leave.
You're like...
wait a minute. They make you leave?
Yeah, oh yeah.
God,
I mean, I can request tickets once in a while, but yeah, for 95% of the shows, yeah. Thanks for the photos. Get the hell out of here.
Really? They don't even let you stick around and watch the show, huh?
Most of the time, no.
Really?
And most of the time now I don't want to anyway, because I have about 2-3 hours of processing time on the photos to get my gallery ready for whatever newspaper or magazine's using it the next day. So when I get home, I've got 2 to 3 hours of work to do. So most of the time, at least nowadays, I'm happy to get out of there anyway. Beat the traffic, get out of there. I'm good. Especially for the pop shows and for stuff I don't like.
Wow, you're sounding more and more like Chris. I'm home by 9. I'm in bed by 10.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I get my photos done by 10:30. I'm out.
Right. It sucks being an old guy. Well, Joe, you're gonna do our fans a favor and do a little bit of a giveaway type thing.
Yeah, I got some 8x10 prints that I'm going to give away. I think you guys put them up on the Facebook page, I believe, on your CMS Facebook page. Yeah. There's one from Judas Priest from their last show in Cleveland in 2011 when they were here with Thin Lizzy and Black Label Society. There is a Slayer photo from their last show in Cleveland with Exodus and Suicidal Tendencies, and a UFO photo from 2013 when they played at the Tangier down in Akron.
Nice. Well, how can people qualify to get a photo?
How do you guys usually, as far as your giveaways go?
We can do it. Why don't we do this? Why don't we just have people email us in, request@theclassicmetalshow.com. We need, we'll just go first three entries at request@theclassicmetalshow.com. One will get the Priest, one will get the Slayer, one will get the UFO. And don't put which one you want, because that'll be the one I don't give you.
Right.
So, and then send your actual mailing address with it. We'll forward it all on to Joe, and then Joe can send it to them with love.
And time for a shameless self-promotional plug.
Please do.
If anybody's looking for any concert photos, I have probably 700 galleries on my website, everybody from Slayer and Exodus to Justin Bieber and Barry Manilow and Taylor Swift and country acts and classic rock acts. So great Christmas presents for anybody that's a music lover, even if they're not a metalhead. Probably the easiest way to get there is akronstudio.com. That'll redirect you to my website, which is joekleon.com. But akronstudio.com will get you there, and if you go to the archive section, there's about 700 shows for you to choose from. Or if you have an artist request, you can send me an email or hit me up on Facebook as well.
How far in advance do you think they need to order to get stuff by Christmas?
Probably by the end of next week.
Okay. All right, cool. Very cool.
All right,
as long as they're in the U.S., I should say that, I guess.
Sure. All right, Joe. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us here and kind of give us an insight to your world of photography. And go over there to Joe's website and go check out his offerings and pick something up for yourself.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you very much.
All right, Joe. Well, it's been a pleasure, and you're welcome back anytime you like, and bring us some more good stories.
Sounds good.
All right, Joe. All right, what do you say we end the interview with some UFO? Are you a UFO fan? I know you shot him, so are you a fan?
I'm a huge UFO fan. I did a lot of work with Pete Way when he was living in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh yeah, we had Pete Way out to one of our shows one time, and he was totally wasted.
Joe was there.
Oh, were you there?
Was at that show. Joe, you were at that show when Pete had the dog, and he kept letting the dog loose so his girlfriend would chase the dog so he could do coke in the bathroom.
He carried that dog everywhere. I've got stories of that dog escaping in restaurants. I could do a whole show with you guys with bizarre, crazy P-Way stories.
Wow. I had no idea you were there, Joe. That was my going away party.
Let me just say, Joe was sitting right next to me on the couch, and me and him were cracking up that he kept letting the dog loose so he could run into the bathroom.
Wow. All right. Well, fair enough.
I have a picture of that dog taking a dump in a guitar exchange in Chicago during a autograph signing with Pete Way and Paul Chapman.
Nice.
All right, Joe. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and let's do a classic from UFO. Let's play some Rock Bottom. What do you think?
Sounds fantastic.
All right. Well, Joe, again, you're welcome back on the show anytime, and send us your email request at theclassicmetalshow.com and be one of the first three, and you'll get a free Joe Kleon concert photo. So here it is. This is UFO with Rock Bottom exclusively here
on your Classic Metal Show.